Happy September 1st, Future History Podcast listeners.
First of the month, yep.
Wake me up when it ends.
September 1st, 1972, as we're talking about this, we'll start with this day in history, 1972, September 1st. The match of the century, as it was deemed, between, it was a chess match between Bobby Fischer and Boris Spassky, in which Fischer won decisively 10 rounds to 5. The players are really not even worth going into as much as the two countries involved, which was the Soviet Union for Spassky and Fischer was the United States. And the pomp and circumstance around this match was not so much, these players were great and considered among the best of all time, but what really drew the media to these matches was the fact that during the Cold War, anything that the United States and the Soviet Union could face off in that was any sort of competition would be like the match of the century. It was like another way to fight the Cold War. It was through sports and athletics.
It was like the Rocky fight of chess.
Exactly. It was that type of thing. And it's not even an overstatement. That's really what it was. And in fact, in 1980, when you had the hockey match at Lake Placid, New York, the Winter Olympics, you had the United States against the Soviet Union, and the U.S. won, and the Soviet Union was a powerhouse hockey team in those days. But what was so great about it, like I said, was that it was between the United States and the Soviet Union. And what's even more interesting is that the final match of that hockey thing in 1980, that wasn't the finals where the U.S. beat the Soviets. They had to go on. U.S. had to go on after they beat the Soviet Union and then beat Finland in the finals. Wow. But it was more important to watch the semifinals with the U.S. and the Soviet Union. So anyway,
Finland is an interesting country.
Yeah, very interesting. It doesn't consider itself part of Scandinavia, which is pretty interesting. Also, it's kind of.
I think Finland has like the highest suicide rate in the world. Did you know that?
That is completely would catch me off guard. I would have no. Why is that? I guess because it's something to do with the weather.
It's dark, and a lot of people who go there maybe don't expect it. But I remember watching a show about it, and I thought that was interesting. Same for the Pacific Northwest.
Interesting, yeah. Finland is an interesting country for a lot of reasons. The people don't waste time with for instance, if you're going to date somebody, there's no small talk. It's kind of like,
let's get to business.
Do we like each other? Do we not like? Yeah.
I might have to go to Finland.
Very interesting. For a lot of reasons. They're, good education system. The people are, very well educated. They speak, English is spoken.
Very educated. Yeah.
And but they are not a lot of people. When you see those three countries up north, you have Norway, Sweden, and Finland. They do not consider themselves part of Scandinavia. They're more
independent.
They're more associated with the countries like northern, North Russia and countries like in that area. They're not with Scandinavia, according to them.
Yeah, I've seen some video footage over there, and it just looks like it's like a constant blizzard.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
A lot of reindeer.
Yeah,
it's really an interesting.
The food,
country.
the cuisine is very.
I don't know anything about
like blood sausages made from venison and things that you would maybe make an American skin crawl.
Sure.
But,
well, I guess with all the reindeer and stuff, I would imagine that there's.
Yeah. Now there was we're gonna jump to Norway now, but there was this really interesting show on Netflix called Lilyhammer.
Yeah, that Little Steven? Was that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So the premise of it is he's a New York mob boss, kind of like Silvio. Mm-hmm. And
From the Sopranos,
he gets stepped over to become the head of the family.
Okay.
So
now, are they an Italian mafia in
New York,
Norway?
In New York.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm telling you.
Okay.
So he says, you know what? I'm going to cooperate with the feds now. So he pulls a shifty one.
Okay.
And kind of gives the feds the information that they need to pin the new chief of the family.
Okay, I see where this is going.
So he says, I want to go to Lilyhammer, where the Olympics was. He goes, they'll never find me there. So He goes there.
Okay.
And slowly but surely, you can imagine what happens.
So witness protection was how he went over to Lillehammer, Norway. Okay.
And so he gets over there, and he, it's different.
Right.
He buys a nightclub. He turns it into the most happening club
in Lillehammer,
like in Norway, pretty much. And he has like the poker games up top, and he meets a Norwegian woman. He learns how to speak Norwegian.
Mm-hmm.
It also touches on like the Islamic population coming.
Oh, okay.
And it's interesting because he's not very politically correct about it. Like, he beats this one guy up because he refuses to assimilate to the Norwegian culture. Very, very fast.
Oh, so he as a New York Mafia guy, he knows what the Norwegian culture...
Yeah, and he thinks he's like the moral high ground of Norway. Right. But you know what? It was a very interesting show.
The show got great reviews, and I had wanted to watch it, but I just never got around to it.
If you want to have a nice time and have a good laugh and see
heard
Steven
it's phenomenal.
Van Zandt, it's a good show.
Yeah.
And he really like takes over Lillehammer, like he's the boss, he's the Don. It's such a strange concept. Like, who would...
It really is, but it makes sense because that is a place to go where but he would stand out like a sore thumb over there.
He does. And he's like, it's funny. Like, there's like a wolf that kills like the girl he's seeing's kid's sheep.
Okay.
And over there, it must be very highly frowned upon to kill a wolf. And like the police department comes and they're like, "Listen, you got any funny ideas about killing the wolf? We're watching you. It's gonna be a problem." And like the scene ends, and he's like, "Screw that."
Yeah.
They go hiking in the woods, but he's in like, like the wool trench
overcoat
coat
and
and everything.
Sure.
He's got his pistol. It's so funny. Like, he really is a smart, funny guy. But yeah, good show. I couldn't recommend it
I'm
enough.
glad you told me about it because, like I said, I had read about it and I said, it's a show I would like to check out. I just never did.
Some it's not just like an Italian gangster thing. There's like a point in the show where they get involved in some kind of a bad car deal, and these gangsters from England come. And it's really cool.
Yeah.
Like, you don't normally get to see that, especially here, like the portrayal of an English mobster.
Yeah.
But they exist.
They do exist, yes.
And so it was really cool. And
a lot of loan sharks in England.
Right. They end up trapping them. Like, the English guys think that they're going to execute Steven Van Zandt's people. So they want to walk them, like, deep into the woods.
The forest.
But the Norwegians know the land.
Yeah.
And they walk them over a frozen lake, and they end up falling into the water. And they freeze the English dudes to death. I thought it was brilliant. So that's my Lillehammer review.
Okay.
5 out of 5, I give it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I like,
It's a little corny at times, but it's hysterical and it's thought-provoking.
Yeah. Well, that's just,
They have an assimilation center where when you go to Norway, you have to take these classes.
Yes.
And they really...
Well, I learned a little bit about the Scandinavian process for bringing people into the country, and you do.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, they do want you to.
You think it's this like liberal haven of.
Yeah.
It's not like you come to Norway to do as the Norwegians do.
Yes, and Sweden is similar to that also. This really had nothing, but Phil Collins had written a book, and he had lived in Sweden after his, in recent years, and he was saying that they're pretty stringent as far as accepting people into the country, and he had to take a lot of tests and back and forth and back, So, well, that's why they're very...
you never hear too much problems coming from there.
No, and the society is very, blonde hair, blue eye,
It's interesting. It is changing, though.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. As are all countries around the world. But it's... There's
like almost like an endless supply of refugees is what the problem is, and they have to go somewhere. So
yeah, I mean, it's obviously those countries up north are you're near the North Pole.
Imagine coming from like the desert and going to the North Pole.
Well,
and having to live there. It's crazy.
You're seeing why skin tones change throughout history because that is what that is what happened. You get people migrating from Africa, Middle East, coming over to these cold countries.
Yeah.
So the skin was lightened in order to deal with the sun, and and the lack of sun.
Yeah.
And that's why that occurred. So yeah, and then thus the blonde hair. All human human traits are the result of the environment, and dealing with the environment.
So
More
my question
fat.
is, like, someone like you're pretty tan, like, by nature.
Yep.
Is that melanin or is that something else?
Yes, it's probably more melanin than
Okay.
somebody else has. Yeah, or a lighter person has.
Yeah,
Yes.
because that's like the new thing now.
Because
It's like-
my father was, I have Sicilian in me
Yeah.
and half Italian, so yeah,
It's
and that's why some of our kids, like get very tan, whereas even Vinny, who is like kind of dirty blonde, blue eyes, or
yeah, he
green.
still has a nice tan.
Yeah,
like,
that's
a
why all you
capability.
guys do, and that's why. But yeah,
Fascinating.
Yeah.
A lot of Russians too have some tan. It's like strange. Like you could find.
well,
some,
because a lot of it's in it,
Yeah.
you have the Asian infusion
Yeah.
in there, and that's yep, and
interesting.
even the eyes, I mean, I'm not going to change this into a geography, but even the eyes of the Asians were to deal with the winds across the plains and the plateau, and even the Gobi Desert and areas like that. It was
Yeah.
to shield their eyes from that. And,
From the wind.
Yeah,
Evolution.
that's what it is. And that was sorry to interrupt you.
No,
That
no.
was the most interesting of all the lessons and things I learned in high school when my social studies teacher went into that and started to talk about the reason human. Before that, I never really put much thought into it, and I just remembered oh, so that's why there are black people, white people. That's
Right.
why some people are fat, thin. It's
Evolution.
it's incredible. It's incredible. Yeah.
On Joe Rogan last night, they were talking about a lot of different things. They did like a 5-hour podcast for like the Spotify
Okay.
initiation.
Oh,
yes.
okay. That's a
and-
long podcast, though.
Yeah,
5
5.5
hours.
hours.
Wow.
They talked about a lot of stuff, though. I mean, I just,
I'm sure you
It was-
can in that amount of time. That's a
yeah,
long.
imagine. And they just, they cashed a bottle of whiskey, him and Duncan Trussell, and they talked about a
Guy's
lot
got
of...
to cackle for a laugh, right?
But that's probably the funniest part about
Yeah.
it is when he laughs. I don't know. It's
good.
hysterical.
Yeah,
but,
it's a cackle. It is funny.
so he's going, Joe Rogan's going to Texas.
Mm-hmm.
His studio is set up. I think pretty much now he's...
Yeah, though a lot of people are exodus from California and LA.
And it was interesting because Duncan Trussell's clearly like a very liberal
Yeah.
man.
Mhm.
And he's under the same impression that Joe Rogan is that it's time to go.
Mm-hmm.
So,
The one thing that I respected that he said, and he said before, is he gets annoyed when the left, these woke
yeah.
teenagers go up to an adult who is conservative and calls them stupid or
Right.
ignorant. He's like, first of all, they're probably smarter than you. Second of all, just because you think that they're just born rich, these people with a silver spoon, not that they worked for everything they got, so he somebody like that I can sit down and have a conversation
Sure.
with. And it doesn't mean
I
we
have-
have to agree, but
I have
we
a
can,
friend who is from Smithtown originally. He moved to California.
Right.
Very liberal guy.
Yep.
But me and him always have the most rewarding conversations.
Yeah.
We'll talk on the phone for 3 hours sometimes late night, and we'll
Yep.
just kind of philosophize and
Sure.
whatever. And we always end up at the same conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what they were talking about last night. We have more in common
Yeah.
than we don't.
Yep.
And that.
Yeah,
my-
and people, a lot of things have to do with people's lot in life and their experiences that they've been brought up under, and you can't take that away from somebody.
Right.
If a person was abused their whole life and they have a sort of jaded view of the world, you can't. That's their reality,
Yeah.
and you never walked in their shoes, so you can't come in and say you're stupid for that point of
Right.
view. It makes you stupid because you're in effect the closed-minded one, and you're the person. So, that's why I can deal with listening to that, and even though my views are different than his, I can at least respect the angle that he's coming from because he has respect for the other side, and that's what that's with anybody.
Well, it was a little difficult at times because, I was really trying to get into this podcast because
Yeah.
for a long one, I figured they would really
Sure.
cut deep with certain things, and they touched on a few pretty interesting things, and one of them was, and bringing this back to evolution, what are we going to do when gorillas figure out how to make fire?
Yep.
They were talking about, that's evolution, So they
Well,
were.
it will eventually
Right.
happen because they are becoming more and more adept at using tools and
Right.
things like that, and
It's pretty scary.
following
That's-
commands and yeah.
It's kind of like, it'll obviously not be in our lifetime, but that'll actually be
Right.
Planet of the Apes. It'll
Yeah.
be,
Well, it is something, it's like you said, it's all part of evolution, and it is just, it's good though, because I like to hear the other side's point of view on things. I was looking at this woman that I knew from high school. I wasn't even really friendly with her, but
Sure.
it's like you just, it wasn't enemies, but it'd be through Facebook. It's like you get linked up with people that you really shouldn't even have anything to do with, because your lives have no reason to intersect whatsoever. But I had to look at her posts, and it's constantly, and she's a white woman, and she's constantly with anybody who's white and doesn't think you're privileged, you're stupid, and it's like this. Stop insulting people. Is be like, you're no smarter than anybody else. First
Right.
of all, and
this is also what
you're a
they're-
45-year-old calling yourself a hippie online. Like, grow
Right.
up a little bit,
Right.
So stop insulting people's intelligence, and that right then, I don't even care what she has to say after that. I just automatically, that's it.
Yep.
Your views mean nothing. So
there's really no conversation to be had at that point.
no, because you're automatically shutting down the other side, who doesn't automatically think that you're, they're not buying what you're selling, so you're automatically smart. I don't have any patience for that stuff. So.
Social media is a weird place, and I think it's actually just getting weirder.
It is.
And this is another thing we were talking about last night. It's like this giant craft that we haven't figured out how to turn it left or right, how to stop it, how to make it accelerate. It's just going, and we don't have any control over it.
It just keeps getting faster and faster,
Right.
and then there is no control.
And it's like at times, like I check like Twitter, I check, and it's like a wasteland of misinformation from
Yeah.
both sides.
Well, everybody's a doctor now. Everybody's a scientist,
Right.
and everybody is a freedom fighter for race, and everybody, people are
Or
so-
the opposite.
Yeah,
Or like
yeah.
an over Trumpy psycho.
Yes.
And I have they're just as gross to me actually,
Yes.
because they do like ridiculous crap sometimes.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Well, once
And-
you're one of those people that think that one side is
Right.
just 100%, you're
lost.
You're lost.
Yep. There's a bigger picture.
There's always two sides to every argument. There's different realities, and until you're ready to at least respect the other side, then you're
Listen, there's a lot of progressive and liberal ideals that I respect.
Yep.
But what we're seeing now is fanaticism on both sides.
Right.
And that makes me worried. And again, to tie it back to this podcast last night, and also we were talking about the other day with this like populism. It's there. We keep being forced fed what we are,
Right.
and Duncan
Yeah.
Trussell touched on that. And
Yes.
I agree with him.
But it's true.
Everywhere you go, everywhere you look, it's
Yeah.
Tucker Carlson, Rachel Maddow. Somebody's telling you what it means to be an American.
Right. And each side they're constantly. Well, I mean, we have touched on this before. It's like, they're overblowing their point of view to the point that it's almost like laughable.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I just, nothing is ever as bad or good as what one side portrays it. There's always that middle road there.
Yeah.
People, and also, people don't. Generally, more people will extend a hand if they see somebody in trouble and things like that. It's just, but it's this. Everybody on social media, you get the chance to really like your deep, dark things that you wouldn't normally say in public.
You just come out with because it's just you.
You're just really allowed to spew it out there in some cases, and
It's kind of awesome, and it's also what I mean. Like it's
dangerous
it's
in some
two
cases.
worlds.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and a lot of times I just try to use like comedy, and
Yeah.
I love memes, and sometimes those memes can summarize such a like an important thing. Like there's this. Have you ever seen Django Unchained?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There's like a picture of Leonardo DiCaprio when he's like drinking his wine and he's like laughing.
Yeah.
And there's a picture of like
I've seen it.
I sweep the floor, and then there's like the dustpan line. and it's like all like pictures of Leonardo
Yeah,
DiCaprio.
yeah,
It's just so
yeah.
funny. Like memes are
Yeah.
really like
Yep.
they're like a brief. I don't even know what they're just a
Yeah,
creation of social media, I guess.
Unfortunately, some people they really I've tried to not engage politically with people as much as possible, but I found one person the last time that I did, I just don't like when somebody takes the angle like they're so much more intelligent.
Right, they're in the know.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
this knucklehead that happened to be doing that, he has like a bunch of cheerleaders behind him, and I know these people, and I know that they're really not as smart as what they're trying to portray online. So
I always just subscribe to the idea that nobody knows anything.
Right. Well,
nobody's telling me anything or you anything.
Right.
Like
This guy put his thing up there, and then he had the cheers, and then I stupidly put my 2 cents in, and I wasn't agreeing with what he said. I wasn't rude to him. I just was, and I didn't even say it to him. I said it to one of his soldiers below him, and man, he came back right away with the ignorant and the history lesson.
Right.
It's like it's
Something-
not worth it. It's just not worth it's not going to get us anywhere. The world, no world leaders are listening to this little
I'm on
ridiculous
Team Musk.
argument.
I'm on Team Elon. That's kind of like
Team who?
Elon.
Oh,
I am. I don't know.
Yeah.
I really support him. I think he's too smart to ever run for politics. That's for sure. But I think he's the guy to pay attention to
Well,
these days. He really is.
Trump is a good picture of what happens to you when you stick your head. Because he was, a lot of people that dislike him now, they were all watching his show and all eating up his lifestyle
Yeah.
and staying at his places in Vegas or wherever
Yep.
before he
Loved going to his golf courses.
yeah, and it's like, the hatred for this guy is just, it's astronomical, and he doesn't help himself with some of the things he does
He
and
really
says.
represents, though, like,
But he didn't need to. He said it the other night, my life was pretty good
Yeah.
before I did this. He
Yeah.
did not need to do this. And he probably could have coasted through the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And history would have looked at him almost like, your stature grows with time after you pass away.
Right,
So
he would have been
people
big,
would
yeah.
look at him like, wow, that guy was like a
Rockefeller,
yeah.
yeah.
So, but instead, he cashes all that in.
yeah.
And the way history, unfortunately, is going to view him in some cases is going to be terrible. And it's not really, it's not my feeling, but that's, due to the media and the way they write things, it's like, wow, man, this guy, that's why I kind of have a respect for him on some level for that, because he really gave up a real, just carte blanche to do whatever and say whatever, and
Right.
people laughed at it. When he said that before, nobody cared. But now that he's a president, it's like, to do that, you got to have, first of all, you got to be, no question about it, you're a narcissist.
To be a president?
Yeah, well,
Well, a self-promoter. I
yeah.
mean, yeah.
And there's nothing, but
It's a very weird, I got to tell you,
Yeah.
everything is weird. I find
Yeah.
everything to be very weird.
it
and
is. It is.
what I was hearing about George Washington last night was a bit strange. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but
You know what?
Oh.
It doesn't. These things, they're not right. But it's like, again, I wasn't there, and it's very. Who knows if he wasn't
But he said
secretly
he paid for them.
Yes,
Teeth, like it
Yeah.
was, so there was like receipts for him giving.
I know. No,
payment.
I'm not saying he didn't do it, but I'm saying I don't know if he wasn't in meetings.
No, but at least he paid. Is my point.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like he stole them. Like
Right.
they're trying to make it out. To
Yeah,
be.
well-
But who knows? Then again.
But I don't know if he wasn't in meetings trying to fight for the rights of
They were going pretty hard last night,
Yeah.
though, calling him a human trafficker.
Yeah, it's like, like,
shit.
slow down. You weren't there.
Right.
You weren't there.
Which is what Duncan
And
Trussell
who knows
ended up
what
doing.
you would have been back then, because
Right.
these guys act like they would have been walking around back then telling people, hey, you shouldn't do. It wouldn't have
There was
happened.
no knowledge.
There was nothing.
Right.
There was like to go back and just erase the great things that these people did.
Right.
Yes, there were wrong abhorrent things.
But I'm
No
sure if
question.
you go back in history and you look at like Romans and people
Right.
like all around the world, they were probably doing shady dentistry as well.
There's
you
no
know? So
humans that were never doing shady
Right.
stuff. I mean, that's, absolutely.
although
But-
Africa often comes up where they say they were doing just fine, had their own tribal thing going on, and then
They were.
Europeans came there
They
and,
were.
and kind of sabotaged.
I mean, they were also
It's interesting also how Joe
a
Rogan.
lot of the Arabic Africans were selling the black Africans into
Right.
slavery. Like, there's no perfect. That's
Right.
the thing. I'm not saying
No, I'm
no, I know. I'm just saying for the people like that are listening, or there's this idea that utopia existed anywhere.
right.
I still find that very far-fetched.
Maybe in Atlantis.
I still find it far-fetched because humans are still humans.
Right.
And there's still some dark corners within a human psyche. So this thing that people now think they would have been walking around as
Abolitionists.
Yeah,
and-
like stop. You wouldn't have been. Understand, if you were around in
You would have
those
been looked
times-
at like a weirdo, and they probably would have like thrown you in
Who
jail
knows?
or like.
who knows how they would have thought even back
Right.
then.
And then there was times in like early American history where there wasn't even slavery yet.
Right.
There was free black men
Yeah.
walking around and women.
Yep.
And
You
so
don't have
it's-
a fraction of the guts George Washington had, first of all. Some of the things that he did.
Right.
And a lot of those people did. If it wasn't for them, this country that you live in wouldn't be here.
Right,
So
this experiment.
just slow down with the hatred of all these guys, the founding fathers. Slow down.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they didn't do bad things. Everybody knows that.
Listen, they fought
plenty
in
of people.
war.
Right. They've killed people.
They
Right.
murdered people.
Right.
So it's like,
Right.
Is
Is that okay? Is them playing God killing somebody in war? Is that okay? Like,
Right.
just stop, and that's where, again, I respect their point of view
it
because
is true.
they do respect the other side, and
Sure.
at least, but I just find that's where it like kind of loses me is the, again, if you're not around walking in other people's shoes, it's you can't go back and rewrite history. You just can't.
Wow.
And you weigh it out. Are the accomplishments that certain people did, and there are plenty of people, of immigrants coming to this country for a better life, wouldn't be coming to this place to better their lives if it wasn't for the founding fathers. So those are also ways to look at it. Go ahead.
Can I throw something at you?
Yeah.
Do you think that the immigration system is broken? Because I do think it is.
Well, go ahead. Explain your...
I just find that it's for people to immigrate here legally.
Mhm.
It's not as accessible as I think that it should be,
Okay.
considering what the Statue of Liberty says.
Sure.
And so,
And what do you mean by that? They make it hard to become a citizen or just to get here? Like
it takes a long time. Sometimes you have to go back to your country, wait for like several
Yeah.
years, and
Yeah, it's not
you could
as
be
easy.
fleeing persecution from
Sure.
a communist regime or like a terrorist group. So there's a lot of different factors. They also give these tests where probably me and you wouldn't even pass.
Yeah, they ask like certain...
Ridiculous questions.
Yeah, I know.
I can't. Come on.
I know. I know.
It would solve so many problems if they just screened
You
them.
see it on the news all the time when they ask citizens questions.
Right, they don't
know
know
nothing.
anything.
Scary.
So it's like it would be. I don't know. I think there's balance, like you said, to the left and to the right, and I think that would be something that would be nice to fix. It would give people,
Yeah.
a
Well, it's
little
also
breath of
not
fresh air.
right that these people who come legally and try to do the right thing,
Right.
while other people just come in, it's like...
And I think it would actually quell that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like if you got rid of the war on drugs, the narcos wouldn't
Yeah.
have a market.
Yeah. No, look, this is a complicated problem.
It's crazy.
It's complicated. And but I do think when you have certain groups that come in and eventually are just allowed to stay.
We should take it as a compliment they want to come here.
Yeah.
I do. I think it's amazing. I think it's such a...
Well, the people, again, that are coming here, and even a lot of these people who are fighting, their relatives would not have found a place to come if it wasn't for people like George was. So like
Right.
before, this hate for all these guys, also they did a lot of things and have helped a lot of people worldwide.
Yeah.
They've created a haven for many people to come to escape persecution,
Well,
to
look at,
escape
Albert
slavery, to escape child trafficking in their crappy
Nazi
countries.
persecution.
Look,
Mike.
they were the ones that created us, and I think if you weigh out how many people they helped versus how many people they, you have an argument there for the on the side of good. So I just think these problems are not as easy as just rewriting history
Right.
and knocking down a statue and like. I get it about the Confederates, so I get. I'm not even trying to argue that, but about people like a Teddy Roosevelt,
Right.
These are deep, issues that have to really sit down and you have to have the truth and both sides shown to you, so that people can make educated decisions, not just knock it down because he did something very bad, and he also, for every bad thing he did, he probably did 20 good things. Like, there's a lot of ways to look at it, and then again, I'm not telling my opinion. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate for a lot of the things I see going on and point it out there. So, but you're right. It is a wild ride on the social network highway.
It is, and there's
crazy.
a lot of misinformation.
A lot.
And it doesn't help, peace. That's for sure. It doesn't help people, learn how to coexist better.
No. No.
So I see people who are on the right
Mm-hmm.
who post things that I don't know. I'm not going to mention names or
No,
anything
don't.
like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think they realize how insane they sound.
Yeah, of course.
They're proving the stereotypes
Yeah.
to be correct.
Yeah. Yep.
And these people, this person actually is an ex-cop.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think maybe.
Well, they do more harm than good to their point of view.
Right,
So if
you're
they're trying to
hurting
promote something, you're just hurting it.
Yeah, like there's a
sound like a
particular
nut.
person I see every day, and I know him, and
Yeah.
lighten up a
not-
little bit, man.
Yeah. You can't. Again, it takes all shapes and sizes and
does.
colors and.
Of course, I
you know.
still stand where I stand,
Yeah.
and I still,
With
there
that
was
being
this
said,
terrible video that surfaced yesterday of some dude walking down the street, and some kid has a brick in his hand, sneaks up behind him, cracks him in the head with the brick, almost kills him.
Yeah. I mean,
There's a lot of crazy stuff.
wrong
happening.
is wrong.
Right.
At some point, you just look at something and there's no. I don't care what he's mad at. There's no reason to do this to innocent people.
Yeah.
It's just.
Why can't we all just get along? Seriously.
Yeah.
It's so cliche. It sounds ridiculous,
know.
but it's so true.
Because again, people are so, like I said, these people that I went to school with, and automatically, if somebody doesn't agree with them, they're ignorant, they're stupid. If that's how it's going to be looked at on both sides, then it shouldn't be, because you're never going to draw people together to sort of work out some type of solution. It's just never going to happen. And and I see it time and time again. It's women, it's men posting things, and it's on both sides. There's no reason on the right that people have to be posting. We know you have a gun. We know you'll stand up for you. If you don't need to constantly show your arsenal like you're, some type of arms dealer, it's not necessary. Any good father is going to protect his family. That's what we do as men. But the need to be this like radical on either side is not necessary, and it only hurts whatever stance you're taking. So.
Yeah, no, I agree there. I want to take a turn now to the green side of things, if you don't mind.
No,
and
feel
talk
free.
about the marijuana industry.
Okay.
I think, particularly in New York, that's going to be one of the things that actually brings jobs back in time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why you're starting to hear, Cuomo, Trump, whoever, Republican, Democrat, they're all starting to get on this bandwagon. I think Trump's always been on that bandwagon. To tell you the truth, it's money. So,
I think he's always.
A friend of mine, though, he drove past a place in one of our towns on Long Island, and I think this might be the first. It says the Marijuana Cafe. Very simple.
Okay.
Very simple. I don't think that they have THC enriched cannabis products yet. I think it's CBD,
Okay.
and that's legal.
Right.
But I think if you can get in on the ground floor on something like that,
Yeah. Yep.
you really could develop like an empire.
Before the government comes in and cashes in.
Well,
on it, yeah.
that's going to be, no matter who's in charge,
Yeah.
they're going to steal money. But I wonder, though, is there like West Coast conglomerate companies that are like eyeing the East Coast? There has to be, because they already know.
Yeah, I mean, entrepreneurs of all sorts and investors and, capitalists are always looking to, so sure. I think that they're just, every state that they're just eyeing it, waiting for it. They keep up with the legislation, see where it's at. And
I'm sure the Bureau of like Alcohol and Tobacco isn't too happy about that, because it's probably it could chip at their profits a little bit.
It also increases their chances for having more jobs on their side too.
Right.
That's the thing. Like, sometimes these agencies like when these things happen, because then it increases their
the bureaucracy power.
it grows.
Yeah.
New
You
departments.
need agents and
Homeland Security was created because of a reaction to 9/11. Their government, it doesn't always think the way you think that they do, because it is a business just like everything else. It's always about the money. But
it's all about the Benjamins.
You also have to be careful. As a small business owner, I'm telling this to any potential entrepreneurs out there getting into the marijuana industry. Be very, very careful about looking up every single law, loophole, stipulation, because the government has people who basically eye businesses and industries that, you're looking at that chart and you're seeing a business jump up, or businesses or industries, and let's pop in there and see what's going on.
Let's just push the button real quick.
And we'll find out how we can get our hands on some of that money.
Yeah.
And that's what they do.
It's a mafia. At the end of the day, that's what it is. It's like racketeering.
That's the government basically rolls over small businesses and shakes them down.
Yep.
And you have to hire a lawyer after lawyer after lawyer.
Until you have no money.
And a business that puts away a lot of money for lawyers will be able to continue.
Right.
The business, it will cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars to continue. And the businesses who don't plan and have good lawyers end up shutting down.
Right.
And the government makes whatever money you had.
It's definitely going to be risky at first here.
Yeah, so my advice, and I didn't own a business in that industry. It was a different industry, but I can tell you that any type of industry where there's questions and ways for the government to get their hands in,
especially as they're writing laws as you speak.
Yes.
There's always new laws just being jotted down, and you don't know. And then they come in here, and then they go in there, and they'll say, well, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Bang.
Lawyers also look. They're ambulance chasers, a lot of them. And what they do is they look for businesses that they actually will look for potential people to get a lawsuit against the company for something. Hey, why don't you have your daughter walk in there, see if she can buy a bowl or a bong or something at that shop.
Right, and instigate a problem.
It's how that guy that started Juicy J's and Raw, he sold a bong to an underage girl. And what happened was the police, during his interrogation, when he was pulled in about it, a policeman was like, man, you should ditch these shops, because you can't sell bong. At the time, you can't sell bongs or bowls, but you could sell rolling papers. Why don't you make
rolling papers, yeah.
And he just always kept that in mind, and because of what the cops said to him, that's how he started this empire that he has now. It's crazy.
It is crazy.
But that's what the government does. Being in business, I've also researched other businesses, and these lawyers, they look for ways to get into a business because there's always potential for lawsuits. And you talk about marijuana business, anything that the public is going to be
consuming,
imbibing, or smoking, or there's anything you're consuming, there's a chance for a lawsuit. And you got to, prep, so it's put coming. A lot of money. A lot of money away for good attorneys. And
it's coming, though. It's going to be.
It is.
In the next 5 years, I think it's going to be
Absolutely.
upon us. And I can't wait. Personally, I think it's, it's long awaited. Actually,
it's ridiculous at this point.
It is.
But
You know, like they shouldn't be telling you. It's that simple. They shouldn't be telling you what you can and cannot have.
Right.
What you can and cannot put in your body. And I keep it consistent across the board. I'm one of those people. I just don't believe in the drug laws. I believe there has to be some regulations. I think if you're a child, you shouldn't have access to tobacco and opium.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, I truly don't. I just, like Ron Paul said, when he was running for president years back, I don't know if it was 2012 or something.
Yep.
If I made heroin legal tomorrow, by a show of hands, how many people are going to run out of here and go buy heroin?
Sure.
Just about nobody.
No.
So it's like the people that are going to seek that out are going to seek it out.
Yeah.
Whether it's legal or illegal. The only thing it does is prop up cartels.
Yep. That's all it does.
I mean, so
you just have to, keep, like you said, regulations such as, like, you don't want any type of drugs to harm other people, such as, let's say, like what they did with smoking. If I'm smoking a cigarette or a cigar, the guy next to me shouldn't be forced to breathe in what I'm smoking. And I'm somebody who enjoys it occasionally. I agree with that, though.
Of course, you don't want to be blasted with somebody else's.
Right. But I also, somebody who's smoking weed or whatever, I know there's the argument about, I drive better high. Oh, okay, that's fine. But anybody that's altering their mind in any sort of way, hits somebody or has an accident, you have to keep strict
regulations. But that argument wouldn't be made with coffee. It alters your mind.
Yeah, no, I understand, but I just think that there's, I think you have to inject intelligence and common sense into that.
Well, of course, I agree with you. But
that's
I also think that would lead to a lot of people, though, going to jail and losing their driving privileges who don't deserve it.
No, but, I used to smoke.
Yeah.
And there were times that I smoked and I was not at my best driving. Years ago, I was a kid, and you know what? Since I've had experience with it,
sure.
That's why I think, you got to be...
I agree with you.
Yeah, you got to be careful. I mean, there are times you get so blown out that you should not be driving,
I wish that would happen to me. Well, it doesn't, some people react differently.
Got to talk to your dealer.
I know.
But in all honesty, But again, they have that with alcohol, though.
Right.
They used to not have these strict DWI rules that they have nowadays.
But I don't think the evidence is there to show that there's as much catastrophes that occur on the road from marijuana as there is.
I would agree with that. I agree with that.
I think there should be laws.
Yeah.
But I just think they can make them a little different. It doesn't have to mirror.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I just think that you have to have some sort of regulation and law if you're going to legalize these things, because at the end of the day, we shouldn't tell other people as an adult, what you should or shouldn't do with your own body. But because you choose to, it shouldn't affect somebody that doesn't choose to. That's all I believe.
I agree.
That's
And that is a good point.
That's all.
Fair enough. Just like you said with smoking, that's a huge one. I mean.
Yeah.
So it's and you see the evidence of that. Some people are really offended if you start smoking in public.
Look, there are times when I quit completely, like for about 3 years at a time. And back in the day when you could smoke in a bar, I went to see my brother's band play, and I hadn't smoked in months, 6 months, 7 months. I felt like I was going to drop dead walking out of that bar.
Right.
My
Headaches,
allergies.
eyes,
and meanwhile, when I was a smoker, I could stand around smoke all day, and I didn't notice it.
Yeah.
But man, I left, and when I was bouncing, I wasn't smoking at the time. But I wasn't smoking while I was working. So I'd be bouncing in a bar all night till 4 a.m, me and my partner, and we would drive home, and I'll never forget it. He literally, as he was driving, he would stand up in his car and stick his head out of the, just to blow the smoke out of his hair. Because he reeked like smoke from being in this smoky bar all night.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, I do this every time I drive home. And he's on the southern states.
With his head out of the mirror.
Out the window just to get that smoky smell out, I mean, a shower obviously would be easier, but it was like he couldn't stand the smell. He wasn't a smoker.
It's also very, like, a dense
smell. It's horrible.
It's interesting how, like, marijuana, like, doesn't resonate.
No.
I always found that to be fascinating.
Although, I've walked into a house, and I haven't smoked in years. Right away, man. You open that door.
Bang, you smell.
Bang, right away. Right away. And it could be downstairs in the corner of a house in a basement, and I walk in that house, I could, because I've smoked. I know what
It's interesting. I've taken some trips to the country, and I've had some conversations with different folks about marijuana.
Yeah.
And you get different reactions depending on where you go. And at one point, I was up north, and this guy was just like so against it, like it was evil. And and he was like a young guy, and I couldn't understand it. And he was like, "Well, life is so beautiful."
Sober,
right?
Sure.
Well, but he drank alcohol,
right? Well,
so it's like, what the hell? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's so weird.
That's the argument I can't get behind. Like, if you're gonna drink,
then shut up.
Yeah, like it's
alcohol is like one of the worst things. It's so low vibration.
Well, my father had and if he's
I'm sure Grandpa's not a big marijuana supporter.
I don't know. He never tells me anything like what he does. He just was like that type of guy where don't worry about it. None of your business. So, but his argument when I used to argue back when I was smoking or even like now, I still don't think it's bad. I just think you got to have some regulation around it.
Sure.
But
it actually makes it harder for children to get when it's legal.
Yes,
by the way.
Yes, I get all that. Yep. But I said to him, why do you think, and he's like, why do you think alcohol is not as bad as marijuana? And his thing is, well, because, if I enjoy the taste of beer, and if I want to sit down and have a beer, I don't have to get blown out. And, and I'm like, look.
I could do the same.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you like beer that much.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like, although that Belgian
people
beer
they like the taste, but it, overall, it isn't that good that you don't enjoy the little zip.
Every time I take a sip of good whiskey, it could be the best whiskey in the world. I go,
right. It doesn't. So his argument would never hold water with me because I always found that to be
the argument doesn't hold water.
Yeah, but that was his argument.
Right.
Was if I just want to sit down and have a beer because I like the taste and people that smoke it, but it was like.
Thank God those are some views that are slowly fizzling out.
I just think he said it because he probably didn't want me to smoke.
He grew up in an era where there was so much propaganda against it that
although everybody did smoke though in the 60s. That was like
well, I was like
but you're right, the propaganda was
reefer madness, like you'll have these orgies and like and unfortunately a lot of psychedelics got that bad rap.
Yes.
That it's going to lead to these like insane circumstances, and
too much of anything is not good.
Of course.
Yeah, you just have to do it like in but that's the key though in life. It's like everything, moderation or use things wisely. People.
What I found interesting is this reporting that I'm hearing about how like the CIA was dosing Manson.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to me. Yep. I really do. I wonder about that.
What I found with marijuana was when you smoke occasionally.
Right.
For me, not again, everybody's different. It would always it would be okay. I could enjoy it or whatever. It would make for a good night. But once it became something that I started to do more and more, and where you might wake up and do it, or every day you have to. My mood the next day, I would wake up in such a negative mood. And I've lived across from the street growing up from a kid that was smoking and totally changed him. He was just always, crabby unless he was high.
Right.
And
that's also the argument for that is that's a personality thing.
Yes, but he was never like that. But I'm saying some people it does affect in that way.
I agree. It's not for everyone.
And he stopped smoking when he got to a certain age, and he's completely nice guy again. It's like.
But I know people and so I think this is what's really interesting. I'm not trying to argue with you at all.
No,
I'm actually just like.
Yeah.
But there's people who have to drink alcohol, otherwise they're pieces of crap.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
So it's any substance, and just like you say.
I agree.
It's moderation. It's a little bit of regulation.
Well, that's my point.
Goes a long way.
Use things smartly.
Right.
But
what would be smart when it comes to marijuana exactly? How would you?
I think that any time, in order for you to function normally, whereas you can relate to other people, once it becomes where, when you wake up and like let's say you have something, you have to smoke in order to do normal functions, or you can't be nice to people. unless you're
Stoned.
then that's when I think it's a bad thing. And there are people that I'm not saying everybody reacts that way, but if you're asking me what's the smart thing, when you get to that point, you say no mas, you stop for a little while.
I didn't know you spoke Spanish.
You get back, you're just a little bit, and then, but that was something that I witnessed, even, not just myself, but other people. Once it became too much,
yeah,
their whole
think,
personality,
though, if they would've
and
never
that's alcohol is the same.
Alcohol, I think, is like a real, and they always say, well, the jury's out on alcohol. We'll never get it back in the bag. It is what it is. They refuse to look at alcohol reform now because it's been banned and then reintroduced. Yeah. It's pretty interesting how alcohol is now like protected. Yeah. Even during coronavirus, during the lockdowns, you can go to the liquor store and get blasted.
Yeah. Well, money
Drink
talks.
a bottle of whiskey, you might not wake up.
Money talks, and lobby groups and things like that, and
it's crazy.
Sponsorships and.
It's interesting in New Hampshire. The liquor stores, I believe, are like owned by the state. Right. And there's no tax. Mm-hmm. So when I went to New Hampshire, I stocked up on a bunch of my favorite stuff. This is a while back. Mm-hmm. But like I walked out of there with like $100,
mm-hmm.
and I had like a trunk full.
Yeah.
Of like top shelf
Spirits.
stuff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was really cool. Really cool.
Yeah.
Up there, I'm gonna do a little Dr. McGillicuddy shout out.
Okay.
When they go ice fishing, they bring the stuff.
Who the hell is that?
Dr. McGillicuddy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you.
Okay.
When they go ice fishing,
mm-hmm.
and if my friend Ed's watching this, he'll appreciate it.
Okay.
But there's these like plastic bottles. It's like schnapps.
Okay.
And it's called Dr. McGillicuddy.
Oh,
it's
okay.
like a New England like
warm you up a little bit on the ice. Yeah.
But it's like menthol flavor.
Oh, okay.
Or mint.
Yeah.
There's something about it though that is just so good.
Wow.
It's not that strong. I mean, you drink enough of it, you're gonna get sick.
Right.
Because it's like sugar water.
Yes.
With mint.
Yeah.
But they always have it in their inside pockets of their coats, and like all these burly New England dudes ice fishing, and then they say, "Where's the doctor?" And then they pull out the doctor. It's actually nice. Like we don't really have like those types of culture like things in New York. It's really weird.
Yeah. Those are old, old remedies.
I have a bottle in my fridge that I've had for like 2 years.
Oh, wow.
It's just so thick. And I only drink it on a blizzard morning.
It keeps you warm, I guess. Yeah, if you're going to be out fishing on the ice.
So interesting. Yeah. It was amazing. I went up there for this like derby. It was on Lake Winnipesaukee,
mm-hmm.
and everyone has these little houses that they bring onto the ice.
Yes,
they have wood-burning stoves
They're
in
a little
them.
shack that they put over the. That's cool.
And they have like a little hole in the floor.
Yeah.
They drill the hole.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and then like they take all the snow. They make
mm-hmm.
a giant ice bar.
Yeah, that's
You'll
great.
see people ripping by on snowmobiles and like
so much fun.
All different types of people. It's just such a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Like New York really. There's a lot of things I notice about New York. We love to think that we have everything.
Mm-hmm.
We love to. But I've been so many places now where like there's a lot of culture that we miss.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, really.
And you also can't ice fish here because
in America, the geography lends itself to that type of activity. All through the north, you see it a lot of.
It's interesting.
Minnesota and areas like that too. You see it a lot.
It's interesting because. Like, we forget about upstate New York being on Long Island.
Yes.
But whenever I talk to my buddies up there who are, like, woodsmen.
Yeah, it's a different world.
They're, like, they have a lot of respect for upstate New York.
Yes.
It's, like, very desolate in some parts.
It's beautiful some of it.
Bears and coyotes. And
well, it's a tremendous state.
Yeah, it is.
It really is. And
I was
don't
looking at the
realize
map, and I was looking at Lake Ontario and how it... And then there's Canada. It's so interesting.
Yes, it is.
New York and Canada have, like, a special relationship with, like, trade and everything.
Yes.
I'm not sure what the highway is when you drive up into Montreal, but I did it like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Such a beautiful commute.
Yep.
I'm actually going to tell you a quick. We're going on an hour, but I'm going to tell you one more quick story.
Sure.
So we were driving up, me and my girlfriend at the time, to go to Montreal.
Okay.
And we wanted to make a pit stop, and or stop at a bank. I think we were trying to find a Chase Bank to get cash.
Yep.
And so we put this address in. And we're in the sticks. I mean the sticks. And it's like 10 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going. All of a sudden, we come up to this creepy driveway. And we're like, that's weird. There's not a building around. I don't see a Chase Bank anywhere.
Right.
So we go down the driveway. We're following. And this is the GPS telling us to go here. We go up the driveway, and it's literally a shack,
Okay.
like from a haunted house.
Yeah, right.
And we had a heart attack. We were like, oh my God, this is set up. We're going to die. And we peeled out of there, and we
Yeah.
just freaking flew into Canada with no money. And it's difficult to get, like, American cash up there,
Sure.
you know? So, but yeah, we had to get out. It was just so strange. Like, why would the GPS send you to this
Weird.
abandoned location that they're calling a bank?
Unless there's a bank. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the answer is.
I mean, it was like
Yeah.
it looked like it was untouched
In
for
the middle
hundreds
of nowhere.
In the
Yeah.
middle
I
of
don't know.
nowhere. Me and this girl, I swear to God, even thinking about it, I get chills because the door had this strange old window with the wooden slats.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
was totally pitch
Wow.
black inside.
So weird.
It was weird. We reversed out of there. We didn't even turn around. We were like,
Yeah.
"Er."
Wow.
It was insane. Upstate New York is definitely strange.
It's a different world. The people are different. The climate is different. Everything's different up there.
It really is. And also a lot of apples.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
A lot of cows, a lot of apples.
Yep. A lot of apples in upstate New York.
Cider.
Good apple picking.
Totally.
Cider. Yeah. Like you
And
said.
I love the cider. I
Yeah.
love like a hard cider.
Yep.
Especially,
Rome apples very big up there. And
Yeah. It was interesting when I was hearing when coronavirus first broke, there was like this like instant slash in demand for milk.
Yes.
And pork products, by the way, bacon. They were dumping like hundreds of
I remember.
gallons of milk.
I know.
I mean, that's such a shame. You know, they
Yeah.
could have done something with that, you know? It's tough. Like, that goes to show you how fragile the economy is. If there's no demand, everything's gone.
That industry
Yeah.
is. Whew, yep. So.
It's really fascinating. Anything else that you got?
No, that was today's show.
What do you
know?
got planned for the rest of your day?
I think I am going to. I have to get school bags for the two younger ones and a lunch, some type of lunch, like little cooler for one of them, and so I'll do some shopping for them.
Do you think that the school year is going to get cut short?
That's I pray it doesn't. I mean that's something I would take a whole episode and get into discussing the school year with COVID. That might be something good for tomorrow because there's some I have some thoughts about it, but right now I just don't know.
Strange.
Yeah, but I have some.
Seems like a lot of the teachers are kind of
Yeah.
pushing to not.
Well, I
have
think the
something.
numbers, even when the numbers go up, I think.